Alright, time to kick some ass.
The king and granddaddy of all action games is back, and here to show everyone how it's done. As the times change, so do the games, but among all the franchise reboots and revisions, it's refreshing to see just how faithful Devil May Cry 5 is to the design ethos of the previous games in the series. The gameplay experience it offers up is one that feels just as good as it did when director Hideaki Itsuno set the bar for action games with Devil May Cry 3 in 2005. Man, time sure does fly. It's strange to think that there hasn't been a full new entry in the Devil May Cry media franchise since Devil May Cry 4 in 2008. Not a single one. Devil May Cry is a series that challenges you to be as stylish as possible, and it does that by presenting a wide variety of moves and options to the player. As the game presses on and the difficulty ramps up, the player gets better in tandem. Player progression is bolstered by an ingenious system that has been sparsely changed since the first entry. Most of the player's arsenal has to be unlocked by spending the resources gained by exploring and performing well. In that way, a conscious thought is left in the player about this new move. The fact that they have it always remains in the back of their mind. And with each new move and power unlocked, there's a feeling of real progression in both the character and the player. And as the game progresses, it does an excellent job at bracing the player for future encounters by drip-feeding new enemies, so when it comes time for you to fight hordes of them several missions later, you've learned their patterns and tells enough that you can anticipate their actions. And that's another thing. I don't think I've ever seen an action game that actually perfectly telegraphs enemy attacks in the way that Devil May Cry does. The enemies are designed in a way that gives you a pretty good idea of what they will do, but also all of their attacks have a pretty noticeable wind-up to them that makes it so there's enough leeway to work around them. It really feels like it's your fault when you get hit. Devil May Cry 5's campaign is split between 3 different characters who all feel really satisfying to play. Itsuno and his team have always made the best feeling action game characters in my opinion, and the trio here is no slouch. Each of them is mechanically distinct and feels reasonably fleshed out. Let's go over them one by one, shall we?
Who brought the marshmallows? 'Cause I'm bringing the fire.
First up is Nero, our main protagonist, reprising his role from Devil May Cry 4. In the last game, Nero didn't have too much to set him apart from fan favorite Dante, and in both his gameplay and character, he kind of felt like a watered down, more punkish Dante. No longer is that the case here. The biggest change is that Nero's Devil Bringer mechanic from 4 has been expanded into his new Devil Breaker system, where the breaker button can perform a variety of different actions depending on which cyborg arm Nero has equipped. By pressing the button while locked on, you drag enemies to you, or vice versa depending on their weight, as was the case before, but by pressing the button without locking on, you'll do an action specific to that arm. This really gives Nero the kind of options he was previously lacking compared to his crazy uncle. In a way, the breakers act very similarly to Dante's various styles, with 2 of them, Gerbera and Ragtime, being pretty clear analogs for Dante's own Trickster and Quicksilver. On top of that, Nero carries over all of the techniques from his previous outing, with some pretty smart changes. Nero's split being mapped to back on the stick while in midair is a welcome change. Improved too is Nero's gun, which was a bit of a pain before because you would have to hold down the button to keep a charge shot in reserve, but now you'll automatically have 2 left when you let go. The most welcome change to Nero's arsenal is that the rev mechanic from Devil May Cry 4 is much easier to pull off. Essentially, by revving up Nero's motorcycle sword and building up its gauge, you can unleash stronger attacks. However, if you press the button at the right time after attacking, you instantly charge it, giving you immediate access to the stronger moves. You can do this after every attack, meaning if you're good enough to chain it, you'll be able to unleash your full potential after every attack. The timing for this has been made much more lenient, and as an extension, I feel more capable of pulling it off than before. It's clear to me that a conscious effort was made to improve upon the already solid mechanics Nero had before, and it really feels like he has come into his own, both as a character and a moveset. Nero in Devil May Cry 5 is one of the most exhilarating characters I've ever played. The amount of energy and ferocity he carries about him is contagious. There's never a dull moment spent with him.
He who desires but act not breeds pestilence. So it is written.
Next up is the mysterious V, Devil May Cry's newest character and the one who boasts probably the most radically different moveset. It's unlike anything I've ever played, and I'm not fully sure what to think of it still. Probably due to his highly experimental nature, V has the least fleshed out kit of the three, and honestly at times playing as him, I kinda go into autopilot. The way V works is that he can't effectively battle demons on his own, instead summoning familiars, which have taken the form of bosses from the first Devil May Cry, to do the fighting for him, and finishing the job when enemies enter a weakened state. The familiar Griffin is more focused on long-range attacks, acting as V's quote-unquote gun, and the familiar Shadow is more focused on close-range attacks, acting as V's quote-unquote sword. The biggest difference between V and the other two is that both his sword and gun can be executed at the same time, allowing strategies that involve both to become a possibility, such as sending Shadow in to launch up an enemy and having Griffin dive bomb it to knock it out of the fray. Building up V's Devil Trigger, that's this series super meter by the way, lets you summon the all-powerful familiar Nightmare, who will act independently from you, but the real fun in Nightmare comes from mounting it and basically becoming an invincible god. With all these possibilities, the process of considering your actions and acting upon them multiplies, to the point where it can be really dizzying at times. It's essentially like playing a game of chess where you as the king take on a more passive role, directing your pawns to do the dirty work for you and dodging your way through your enemy's moves. The attacks even use some chess terminology. Only V can deliver the finishing blow on enemies, as demons cannot kill other demons, so you quickly zip around and warp to foes to perform that satisfying killing strike. The ebb and flow of V's gameplay becomes avoiding the action and building up that super meter. You can do that in two main ways. One, by performing really well with your familiars, and the other by holding a button to read poetry. Yes, that's right, this game has a read book button. And that's just fantastic. Having an action game character slowly waltz around reading William Blake poetry in the heat of battle while explosions and carnage erupt behind them is something I never realized I wanted or needed, and I absolutely adore it. V walks a fine line between being edgy and cheesy, but he never goes too far in one direction. He's pretty snarky himself, and his style is altogether different from the punk and rock of the other two characters. Also keeping up the levity is the familiar Griffin, who sounds like Gilbert Gottfried and constantly cracks jokes. And when you summon Nightmare, he can enter in a variety of ways, from shooting down like a meteor to crashing through the wall like the goddamn Kool-Aid Man. Everything about V seems like it wouldn't work, but his character, his gameplay, everything just sticks the landing so well. The final character on our list is Dante, the legendary wacky woohoo pizza guy himself. Dante in Devil May Cry 5 is hands down the best action character I've ever played as. He has about, say, 14 different movesets, and each of those different sets and his techniques flow so naturally into each other. Dante's breadth of possibilities far outclasses that of V in Nero, with him possessing 5 different melee weapons and 5 different guns, each of which has their own unique set of moves. The amount of depth in Dante's kit is further heightened by his styles. Essentially, styles in DMC allow a button on the controller to change its purpose. Trickster allows for more dodging and movement options, Swordmaster about doubles the moveset of every melee weapon, Gunslinger about doubles the moveset of every gun, and Royal Guard can be used to block every single attack in the game and deal out damage in return with precise timing. You can effectively solo the game with it if you know what you're doing. It's quite insane. Now, with all of these options in mind, here's the thing. He can switch up his kit on the fly at any time. Every weapon can be switched into the next with the press of a button, and every single style can be accessed with the press of a direction on the D-pad. The amount of complexity at offer with Dante, the amount of moves you have to memorize with every single weapon, it would all be far too much if he wasn't just so much fun to play. And he's so much fun to watch! With Nero taking over the typical action game protagonist role, Dante is free to be even more of a crazy hobo than ever before. He literally can't pay his utility bills at all, probably doesn't shower, the man has a hat for a weapon, it's classified as a firearm, it shoots money, and acts as one giant tribute to Michael Jackson's dance routines, and that's just so fun and ridiculous. Nero may radiate punk energy, but Dante radiates pure crackhead energy. He's a goddamn maniac. While Dante never gets as absolutely crazy as he did in Devil May Cry 3, he's more refined and definitely much older than ever before. For the moments he does let loose though, he's really something to behold. And finally, we have the motorcycle weapon people have been pining for ever since Dante did sick tricks with 1 and 3, and it's pretty incredible. It's a motorcycle you can ram into enemies, but also split apart into 2 giant chainsaw swords. It's out of this world, and I love it. I love just about everything they've done with Dante in this game. Not just his new options, but he even has some old weapons that have been tweaked to give something new and fresh to work with. There's quite an array of movesets at your disposal here, and while there's some overlap, I really appreciate the amount of options you're given. Also, Dante is very sexy, and I love him. All of these options round into the core conceit of Devil May Cry, which is trying to look as stylish as possible. The game gives you active feedback on if what you're doing is cool or not with the style rankings. It raises for doing things like dodging enemy attacks, landing sick combos, and executing moves at blazing speeds. The better you do, the higher the rank you get. You get punished for repeating moves and getting hit, so you have to pay attention to both how you're attacking and the enemy to keep that style up. There's a dynamic to building up that meter and keeping it high that really exemplifies the kind of complexity offered by the characters. With V, it feels like I get triple S ranks just about all the time with little to no effort. It's actually silly how easy it is. You just have to prevent V from getting hit and spam inputs, and you'll get up to the top in no time at all. With Nero, it's a bit harder to rise up, but still pretty doable, as Nero has an easy way of pulling enemies to him and thus bridging the gaps between combos. And with Dante, it feels like a war of attrition to keep that meter up, because you have to keep on the move and keep dishing out blows and taunts while making sure no enemies try to rough up your perfectly sculpted ass. Not only do each of these 3 characters feel distinct, they even have their own musical identities that exhibit their personality through their battle music alone. Punk bad boy Nero has the pulsing electronic rock anthem Devil Trigger that expresses his burning desires for revenge and his need for power. 400 IQ poet V has Crimson Cloud, which is a screaming grunge rock song that shouts about V's need for bloodshed and perfectly evokes the kind of emo his design is going for. And Dante has a selection of 12 battle themes from the series' history that you can pick from. It's really weird of them not to make a new theme for Dante. The music in Devil May Cry 5 is otherwise pretty solid. The new composers do a solid job. I'm an amateur composer myself, so I really like giving musicians a shout out when their work resonates with me, and thus I'd like to highlight the work of new Capcom composer Yoshia Terayama, who in my opinion made the best battle themes in the game. The music also plays an integral part of combat, in that, in levels where the main combat themes play, the music is dynamic, tied to the style rank, meaning the music will change and add more parts as you progress from rank D to A, and the chorus will start up when you hit rank S. It adds an extra layer of reward for doing good, as not only will you feel good, you're rewarded with stellar background music that matches the intensity you're feeling with a section of the music that is equally powerful. And the great combat is bolstered by great level design. It's varied, the levels are the usual fun start-to-finish linear romps with enemy waves that come up to block you off from progressing until they're all dead, and that's exactly what I want. Good level design to back up excellent combat is all Devil May Cry needs. As usual, action is broken up by light platforming, light exploration, and really light puzzle solving to give the action the downtime it needs to not be tiring. In fact, exploring for collectibles is better than ever this time around, because now you won't find collectibles strewn about in random breakable objects. Instead, things you can break for rewards are clearly signposted. Now it actually feels like you're supposed to comb the environment for every detail and secret because you actually have the leniency to. In previous games, you would have to break every single object for red orbs and find every single secret stash for a good ranking, which really defeats the point of exploring if you just have to break everything anyway. Now you can take a breath and take the sights in. It feels like it's actually balanced for looking for secrets now. And there's actually some really cool secrets this time around. There are plenty of them, and even branching paths leading to a lot of replayability. In fact, some secrets can only be opened up to you if you summon Nightmare during combat in V's levels. Remember when I said he'll crash through walls? Yeah, those walls were guarding secrets. This level of detail kinda blows my mind. Other secrets can be opened up thanks to a really cool system called the Cameo system, where the game will call upon live and ghost data of other players for certain missions where you can see multiple characters running around. So you can have another player running around as V in the background of your Nero mission. They can even do things in their games that will affect your game. Like knocking down a pillar in V's first mission opens up a secret area for Nero to explore in his respective mission. There's even 2 missions that are fully co-op, and man, being able to play Devil May Cry with my friends is, again, something I never realized I wanted, but now I really want them to do more with this in the future. Because it's incredible fun. There are a few kinks to the system, some issues with Enemy Desync, but if they can work those out and base an entire mode or even an entire game around this kind of co-op play, that'd be something to behold. And thankfully, you're not going through the entire game twice this time. This is a bona fide full Devil May Cry experience that rivals Devil May Cry 3 in scope and cohesion. From start to finish, the game is fun, perfectly paced, and every level is executed fairly well. Every mission also ends on a kind of perfect note where it makes you want to see more. and a game that makes you want to keep playing even when you can't is the mark of a really, really damn good game. It feels like the team got proper funding this time, and that can pretty evidently be seen in the visuals. The engine powering Devil May Cry 5 is Capcom's Re-engine, which was built to output stunning visuals at a smooth 60 frames per second on modern consoles. In that respect, this engine is a natural fit for Devil May Cry, which has always run at 60 FPS. Most of the Devil May Cry games have been technical powerhouses of their respective eras, running high-quality in-game assets in real time and having gameplay run at that high frame rate target that almost never budges. Naturally, with today's rendering technology far exceeding that of then, the game looks a lot better than its predecessor. Devil May Cry 5 offers hyper-realistic visuals and, in its cutscenes, offers what just might be the most visually impressive real-time graphics I've ever laid my eyes on. It's extremely well optimized, looks gorgeous, and even with my mid-range PC I can handle max settings at 1080p and it'll never dip frames in gameplay. As long as I'm not recording, so the footage you're seeing may not be fully representative of the game. But still, it is beautiful. Just look for yourself. Especially the way the characters' faces animate in cutscenes. These are probably the most lifelike animations I've ever seen in a video game. Tiny facial gestures performed by the actors are replicated in full detail by the animators, and it really helps sell some of the more dramatic scenes. As an example, just look at Nero's face in this cutscene. When he's complimented, he gives a subtle smirk. It's a small touch, but it goes a long way. Even extending beyond cutscenes, the animation and gameplay is also top of the line. Unlike previous games, there's a smooth transition that plays between animations, and while it may not seem like the best fit for a fast and twitchy action game, it totally works. A fine balance has been struck between the fidelity of the animation work and the responsiveness of the controls, to the point where everything feels completely natural. So, the game looks great, plays great, what else do you need? Well, I have a few concerns about the balancing, and it's mostly relegated to the difficulty. Plainly put, Devil May Cry 5's default Devil Hunter difficulty is a bit on the easy side. Previous Devil May Cry games have always kicked my ass on the first runaround, and I was a bit saddened that 5 didn't. I'm not sure if it's just because I'm more seasoned to this kind of game, or if it was genuinely easier, but I think having enemies deal just a bit more damage could have gone a long way to making a more challenging experience and really punishing screw-ups. Nothing in 5 really got my blood boiling, and it didn't need to, but nothing really rivaled the feeling of pure adrenaline of beating 3's final boss on my first attempt with a sliver of health remaining. I also felt it was a bit easier to perform some of the more advanced techniques. Making some moves easier to perform like Royal Guard was a welcome change in my eyes, but it's insanely easy to juggle enemies as Nero now, to the point where I was getting a few, Vietnam-style flashbacks to the, Devil May Cry reboot. Oh god. I could go on and on about the little details of this game, and everything I loved. The game's story is excellent, and the last 5 hours really feel like the product of over a decade's worth of build-up. The new photo mode is pretty cool for getting in some cheeky shots. I really appreciate the fact that your custom controls are reflected in the skill list now. That's very helpful. There's a lot to love in this game, but if I went over everything, I'd be here all day. I already made 1 hour-long Devil May Cry video, and I don't want to do that again anytime soon. It's time to wrap up. It's very clear to me that Devil May Cry 5 was created to be the finest Devil May Cry game, with the ways it both sticks to tradition and deviates from it to be better. Gone are the fixed camera angles of games old, in is a wholly free camera. Gone is any backtracking. In is a fully realized game from start to end. Hideaki Itsuno and Capcom Development Team 1 really delivered on making the best possible game they could. Devil May Cry 5 may just be the best game in the series. It may just be the best action game ever made. It has the most well-rounded campaign, the best graphics, the best feeling gameplay, and the best presentation. It will definitely stand up to the test of time, and will be fondly remembered. Devil May Cry 5 has cemented the standards for action games going forward, by returning to a simpler time. At its core, it feels like a game straight out of 2005, and that's something we desperately needed. It's a blast from the past, and the bastion we need to carry action games into the future. And now, well, they've got a lot to live up to. I award this game with 5 Dancing Neros out of 5 Dancing Neros. Thank you for watching. Please leave a comment, please like the video. Thank you to all of our patrons over here at Source Gaming, including our super patron, the Duke of Dorks. A link to his channel is down in the description below. I'll be discussing the story in depth in the next video. I hope you'll join me then. Adios!